Welcome to Bet On It. I am Kelly Stewart, joined by Ralph Michaels and Marco D'Angelo. Welcome in, gentlemen. We're ready for a fun-filled Saturday. It is Friday morning here on the West Coast. It's Friday afternoon on the East Coast, depending on where you're at. But the lines still are not out for college basketball. I have scoured the internet and have not seen them. Luckily, we've got some pretty sharp handicappers over at wagertalk.com to provide us with some of those numbers. And I'm only really about a half point off from each. Ralph, you did pretty good last week with some of your hypothetical lines for the show, so we're rolling with it yet again. Let's just get into it. I think we just hit it hard. We got a lot of games to go over. We got some NBA talk with Andy. Ralph did really a lot of extra homework this weekend for you guys on the TNA segment. We got some best bets to follow up the show. Welcome in, Marco, Ralph. Let's get into this big game breakdown. Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Texas at Baylor. Our very own Adam Trigger is going to be at this game, and he was so happy that my Kansas State Wildcats beat Baylor so that he could bet Baylor in this game. And I made the game 3. Ralph made the game 2.5. So really close there on the number. Total 154.5. Marco, I'm going to go to you at first. Bottom line, this Texas team has been on a roller coaster ride since they fired Chris Beard, and rightfully so. Losing a head coach middle of the season causes a lot of headaches and a lot of heartaches, and that is what this season has been for the Longhorns. But the good news is they're still going to make the big dance. This is probably one of the better matchups on the slate for Saturday, so I'm glad you picked it. But tell me why I should not be taking Texas plus 2.5 here.
Well, Kelly, I can't argue about taking Texas in the 2.5 because they've played well. And as you said, they have overcome a lot of adversity this year, major distraction with Chris Beard. And they're doing it. They're getting the job done. But this is one of those spots where I'm not going to look at a side. I'm actually going to look at the total in this one. And I think you're going to see both teams pushing the ball up the floor on Saturday. Now, Baylor, they've had a couple gut-wrenching losses the last 2 games. They went to Kansas, were actually slapping Kansas around first half of that game, and then had a total collapse in the second half. And then what happens? They go to Kansas State, and they do a repeat, off to a quick start against your Wildcats. And then second half, it was just ugly for them. I think they're going to put the pedal to the metal in this one. They don't want to have that happen again. Playing at home, they should get off to a good start, and I think that's going to dictate the pace of the game. We know Baylor wants to go faster. Texas can play either way. They are the better defensive team in this one, but I am going to look for this one to get up and over the total. Now, I'm going to give you what my projection is on the total, so that when the line comes out, again, we know what the line should be to make sure we're in the parameters there. I think there's going to be 158 points or more in this one. So as long as we've got a bucket of space there on the total when it comes out, I'll like the over in this one. And we're projecting this one to come out around 154. But I think it could even come a little bit less given Texas some of their games this year, looking at their other totals, are much lower than this. So go ahead, take over Texas Baylor on Saturday. Look for the barn burner. And if you had to play the game, I would lean to the Texas side because I just don't trust Baylor right now. One thing I do want to say about Baylor, Kelly, I mentioned it last week when we broke down the game on Baylor. They had that 10-1 run, but during that 11-game stretch, they only played 2 teams in the Big 12 that were in the top 5 of the Big 12. They went 1-1 in those 2 games. Obviously, Texas is one of those teams in the top 5 of the Big 12, so we'll see how they fare on Saturday.
I love it, Marco. I love when we align. Ralph, so one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize as handicappers, if you will, that we don't look at that elusive AP rating. We don't care about the coaches poll. We don't care what the sports writers have to say. And while this on paper is a top 10 matchup, it actually is a top 10 matchup. We have 2 really great top 10 offenses here. So I am kind of buying into Marco's theory on the over. Do you have a thought on the total, and do you like a spot on the side?
Well, let's remember this. If you win 18 games in the Big 12, you are still going to be a top 5 or 6 seed in the tournament. The Big 12 is by far the toughest conference in all of college basketball, top to bottom with only the teams they have. It is just a brutal conference that teams get beat up. And while you said Texas has had an up and down run, I really don't look at it like that, Kelly. Home against Iowa State, they win by 18. They beat Oklahoma at State. They go to Texas Tech, lose, beat West Virginia at home, lose at Kansas. They did win at Kansas State, beat Baylor at home, lose at Tennessee. It's a very home road dichotomy situation. Last week on this show, I said I expect Baylor's defense to start to improve. Remember, JTT's been back just 6 games. He has yet to play over 25 minutes, but Baylor's D has not improved at all like I thought. Marco talked about that second half collapse against Kansas, and hell yeah, I mean, they allowed 49.3% shooting against Kansas State from 2-point. They allowed Kansas 51%. The 3-point defense has improved 20% and 25% the last couple games. But Texas is a 2-point shooting team. Texas likes to get the ball down low, and that's where Baylor's D has struggled. Now, Texas, to me, if you can give a coach of the year to an interim, I would actually give it to Texas. Losing Chris Beard and what they've done since their loss, to me, they are still a top 10 team overall with their 22-6 record. I'm going to make a slight lean. I talked about how the Big 12 home court is so important, but in this situation, with the matchups of Baylor's 2-point defense, Texas 2-point offense, and Baylor still not gelling. Maybe that Kansas game cost them 2 losses, as they lost to Kansas State as well. And yes, at home, they are 13-2 straight up. They're 9-6 ATS. But the matchups here with the defense, I do like Texas. The slightest of leans. It's a great game to watch. I'll not be involved betting it. But again, Texas plays better pressure defense. One flaw Baylor does have on offense, despite being as efficient they do, is turning the ball over. I think the Longhorns can expose it.
Yeah, that is a caveat, if you will, that the Big 12 loves to turn the ball over, but they do have those really nice home-road dichotomies. I will most likely be on Texas. I'll tweet it out if I end up on that side. Ralph, I'm going to kick it right back to you. And this is a system that you and I have known about for, well, ever. And you might have been even the guy that taught it to me. Right now we have number 6, Virginia, catching 2.5 at North Carolina, total 131.5. And that system is ranked road underdogs catching points against an unranked foe. And this year, I believe it's 31-16 against the spread in college basketball. I don't want to blindly bet it, but it has been a good blind bet. My only concern is Virginia's off that ugly loss to Boston College, and North Carolina has been a little lackluster this year.
Well, Virginia's not only off an ugly loss, they beat Duke in overtime, a game that was close. They scored 63 against NC State. They scored 61 against Louisville. They scored 57 against Notre Dame. Yes, we know they're one of the slowest paced teams, number 360 as far as KenPom rankings. So, that is a concern. The one thing I will say this is Virginia is not a ranked team, guys. Virginia is in the AP poll because they're 21-5. Because they won a national championship a few years ago, and because Tony Bennett's a great coach and they're Virginia. You look at KenPom rankings, Virginia's 34, North Carolina's 47. You add in the home court edge, and I agree with the line. So this is one instance, Kelly, where yes, we look at ranked teams, and yes, the situation is good, but I think this is actually a negative in that role because I don't consider Virginia a ranked team. North Carolina up-tempo. Has North Carolina turned it around? I don't think so. Yes, they're off a win, but that win was against Notre Dame where they were a big favorite. Their other win, home against Clemson. In between there, a loss to Miami, a loss to NC State. These are 2 teams, again, in the ACC that know each other so well. We go back and we look at the first game. It was a 65-58 win for Virginia. Any anomalies in the box score? Well, you look at free throws. North Carolina, 8 of 12. Virginia, 11 of 19. 3-point shooting even. Virginia, a much better 2-point shooting. North Carolina only 13 of 29 shooting the 2-point, 44% from 2-point on the road. I am going to say this. North Carolina is still a team 17-11. You're 2-5 your last 5 games. Yeah, they don't have to worry about making the tournament. I think their reputation is going to get them in. But if they happen to lose to Virginia, if Florida State pulls out a hell of a game, and if Duke in the home finale where they're hosting Duke, if they happen to lose all those at 17-14, I think they clearly are on the bubble despite having the reputation they have. So that gives North Carolina much more pressure in this game. Late in the year, I do like fading those teams at home that are playing with pressure, especially a blue blood like the Tar Heels. With that said, I think you expect to ramp up the defensive intensity. The offense has struggled of late. We know the Virginia offense has struggled of late. And I'm going to take the second half out of play. I like under first half in this game. I think we're going to see a team that fights each other out. Yes, you're giving up some value. I expect this total to be 133. So that puts your first half total. If you divide the 133 in half, you're going to get 66 and a half. And usually you're getting 3 points less in the first half. So I'm expecting a 62 and a half, 63 first half line. And I do think both teams slow the pace, pick up their defensive intensity. Offenses that struggle will take some time to get their emotions under control. So under first half for me in this one.
Marco, Ralph said they're 17-11, and I've always said some teams you have to pay a premium for, specifically those that played in the national championship last year. North Carolina is 8-20 against the spread this year. They are just absolutely horrific. And here I am looking to make a case to lay 2.5. What say you?
Well, you're not going to like what I say, Kelly, if you're looking to lay the 2.5. I want to start with the first thing that you opened it with about that angle that's been so good. And yes, it has been absolute money taking it. But like anything else, Kelly, we do these shows and we share that information with everybody. And then everybody starts chirping about it. Everybody starts tweeting about it. And guess what? You start paying a premium for it. Case in point, we're taping on Friday. Last night, you had Illinois and Northwestern in that exact scenario. What happened? That game opened up Illinois -5, closed at Illinois -7.5. It landed 4, so it didn't matter from the opener to the close. But that is just way too many people, in my opinion, jumping on the bandwagon. Now, one of the things that I said, that you said about just betting blindly, yeah, a system like that, you can do it. But there is one spot that I don't like that. And that's when you got a team like North Carolina that is in that so-called system. Because as Ralph liked to say, Virginia is not a top 25 team in his opinion. This is a spot where I almost thought we had Joe here from the college football segment of Are You High? Because Virginia is definitely a top 25 team. They play great defense. North Carolina is the name team. And as you said, they played in the national championship last year. So when you get a North Carolina team in that angle and they've got that marquee name, I'm a little bit hesitant of blindly taking them because of that system. I've always said, you give me the better team getting the better defense, getting points, I'm going to line up there. And let's talk about Virginia. Yes, obviously, Virginia has not looked good in the last 2 games. They beat Duke. It was close game, but they covered the spread. They were -6. They won by 7. Duke is one of those teams that even though Coach K's gone, it's still that marquee name of Duke. And I think after playing Duke, they had Louisville up next. If you've watched Louisville this year, they're absolutely god-awful. They've been getting drilled. I think they thought they just had to show up and they would win. Well, that almost cost them because they showed up and they only won by 3, laying 16. Then they played Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a team that is underachieving this year. Did they look past them as well? Yeah, they only won by 2. So now the stock is falling on Virginia all of a sudden. 2 close scares. And what happened last time? It finally caught up with them. They only scored 48 points at Boston College as a big favorite, being embarrassed. I think they got caught looking ahead to the North Carolina game here. And I like taking good teams that have that embarrassing loss, especially a game where you don't even break 50. I'm going to go ahead and take Virginia here plus the points. I think it's too many. North Carolina is not a good team. They don't play good defense. They're living on their name. I think the wrong team's favorite. I'm taking Virginia in this one. As long as I'm getting points, I'm on Virginia.
I agree, Marco. I wussed out on Northwestern, my second favorite Wildcats team last night, and I wish that I would have played them. They did get the cover. I'm just glad they didn't win outright because I was this close to putting them in my parlay, and I would have been so mad. That being said, I also played against the system when I took Auburn +4 at Arkansas. So just every once in a while, if the handicap doesn't match, don't just blindly bet these systems. Marco's got me a little bit of thinking work to do between now and tip-off Saturday. So in the interim, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, a little prop shop with Andy and maybe some TNA with Ralph.
How do you like to finish the college basketball season paying under $30 per week? Between now and Selection Sunday on March 12th, there's still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and Wager Talk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special that will include the rest of the college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. That's right, from Monday, February 27th through Monday, April 3rd, there are 5 full weeks of hoops action, which breaks down to under $30 per week. Sign up for this promotion now on your favorite handicapper's homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship in Houston on Monday, April 3rd, plus all non-March Madness tourneys, including the NIT and CBI, all for only $149. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experiences in sports. Some call March Madness the most exciting time in sports betting, so act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time. Grab your favorite college basketball handicapper, or perhaps add 2 or 3 college hoops experts to make this March Madness not only exciting, but also profitable. No coupon is needed. Just head to the homepage of the handicapper of choice and lock the $149 price in now. As the earlier you sign up, the more days you receive.
Welcome back to Bet On. It's now time for Prop Shop with Andy Lang at Bump Sports on Twitter. And Andy, I see, per usual, you love to dress like me. What is with us? There have been multiple times where I go to film with Andy. I'm like, we have to change shirts. We look ridiculous. We just have that ESPN vision, I guess, Andy. All-Star break is over, and we're rocking and rolling in the second half of the NBA season. What are we looking out for as far as the second half goes? Last week, you gave us the live under 40.5 wins for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I hit that one. What else should I be looking at?
Well, those who know me know this is my pet peeve when I'm wearing the same color shirt as somebody. And you roped me into it. You're like, nope, we have to record now. You can't change. I'm on a tight schedule.
All right, some of us have really busy schedules. And, I'm just over here out of the goodness of my heart, moving things around for you. You just don't have time for a wardrobe change today.
I don't. All right, well, let's get into it. Kelly, let's talk Nikola Jokic on triple doubles. You say triple doubles. My God, that must be really hard to hit. Not for Jokic. This is a really good bet. He comes out of the All-Star break. He's well rested, and he could have gotten his triple double at like plus 120 or plus 130 even at some books. And you look at his numbers. This guy is 13-4 to have a triple double in his last 17 games. So if you just blindly bet Jokic to do these triple doubles, you would have hit 13 out of the last 17 games. These are not very juiced props, this triple-double. I mean, there was plus money the other night. When he doesn't get a triple-double, he's really close. Obviously, everything goes through him on Denver. I think you could just blindly bet this thing as long as you're getting a good number. If it's minus 120 or better, I say keep taking Jokic whenever he plays. There's no rhyme or reason to when he doesn't get one. He's always right around the number. So just go ahead and take Jokic on triple-doubles. We've got a couple look-ahead spots on Saturday I want to keep my eye on. The Heat and the Hornets are coming off of back-to-backs, and the Hornets are an absolute mess. And if their game doesn't go well, this could be a pretty dejected team. The Heat have a really tough game tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. It doesn't look like they're going to have to play Giannis, and they've beaten Milwaukee the last couple times without Giannis. This is a game for Miami that they have to win. They have an extremely tough schedule. They have to play Philly twice coming up. They have to play Cleveland twice. So this Miami Heat team needs wins. Don't be surprised if they come and they smash Charlotte. So take a look at some of the Miami Heat players' overs when they go up against Charlotte, particularly Bam Adebayo. If he plays in the back-to-back, he should have a good game against the Hornets that just traded Plumlee. And also Malachi Branham, who we've talked about. Kelly, he just keeps hitting his points, rebounds, and assists prop. He did it again. First game out of the break against Dallas. He has 23 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, he's the guy for San Antonio. And you can find some of these gems on some of these really bad teams. Malachi Branham is the one that, as long as Vassell is out, he's going to keep playing minutes. Their bench didn't do much on Thursday. San Antonio's looking to lose, but the points and rebounds and assists got to come from somewhere. Look at Malachi Branham. And then for Friday night, going with Marcus Morris, but I'm going under. This guy has been an under machine, and he's just not getting nearly enough shot attempts to go over this number. And when you look at some of his point totals, I mean, there's a 4, there's a 6, there's a 2. He had a 15-point game, but that was a game without Kawhi Leonard. So, Kelly, we know Paul George and Kawhi Leonard take a bunch of shots. Now they add Russell Westbrook onto the team. Russell Westbrook is starting for them tonight. Surely that's going to eat up a few more shot attempts. Marcus Morris, the last couple games, 2 for 6 from the field, 2 of 7 from the field, 19 minutes and 23 minutes. His minutes are down. His points are down. Take him under 10.5 tonight as Paul George, Kawhi, and Russell Westbrook will start and eat up all of the shots. That is my NBA best bet prop for this Friday.
I love it. Andy coming in hot, breaking up that college basketball talk and giving us some NBA winners. Again, you guys can follow Andy at Bump Sports. Andy, we'll see you next week for another edition of Prop Swap. Oh, it's time for some TNA. The man with the pen, Ralph Michaels. I know you're not used to seeing him in the regular segments, but I didn't want to ask this segment because there is some really great information that Ralph comes up with. I know it's kind of difficult with the database. Obviously, it works better for NFL and college football. But you do have 2 systems for us today, Ralph. And of course, by special request of me, a couple of nerd charts.
Absolutely, Kelly. And just to go a little deeper into what you're talking about, many of the systems that we give on TNA are based on lines. And with college basketball lines not being posted until the night before, it's tough to give you systems and give you the games they apply to. I do have 2 that I found where we have games that are being played on Saturday with the systems. The first is this. I'm looking at teams from game number 20 and on. So we're late into the season. You have the regular season grind. You're playing your conference rivals. You're off a win as a dog. You're on the road. And in that win as a dog, that upset win, you beat your opponent by 15 or more points. So you're off a big upset. You're on the road again. You're off a win as a dog. That is a 57% system. If I look at that same system and delete teams that were a favorite of 6 or more in this game, that moves to 59%. With 180 games of sample size. So a very nice sample size. So the situation, a 58% system says to play on USC, which will be around a pick 'em or a 1-point dog to Utah. Play on Tarleton State, which is playing Rio Grande Valley, and play on Northern Arizona plus the points against Northern Colorado. So USC, Tarleton, and Northern Arizona are all off a big win as a dog and on the road, and all of them are either a dog or a favorite up to 5. And one more that we have for you. This is game number 17 and on. So same premise. Later in the year, you're playing your conference foes, but listen to this. You won your last game, you are at home, and you have a win percentage under 20%. So you are the scourge of the college basketball slate. You are one of the worst teams there is, but you did win your last game. You have some confidence late in the year, and you are at home. How about if I told you these teams, these crappy teams that are obviously all big underdogs, have covered 66% against the spread, and they've gone under the total 65.9%. So IUPUI is the team that fits that. They're playing the best team in the horizon, Youngstown State. They're going to be getting about 2 touchdowns, maybe even 15 or 16 points. But this ugly system says to play both IUPUI plus the points and the under against the Penguins of Youngstown State.
Ralph's given us a hold your nose early on in the show. IUPUI, one of the worst Division I college basketball schools, is going to make for a fun Saturday afternoon. Ralph, by special request, I get this a lot, and it's hard for me to keep up. You have such an extensive database, and that's why, frankly, we do these shows, is because you have the information. I'm looking at which teams are some of the best against the spread. That's easy to find. But I want to know the teams right now that are peaking. So what have you dug up for us since February 1st for some of the best and worst ATS teams in college basketball?
Obviously, I picked a random date. I don't want to pick a week or 10 days because you might only be playing 3 games. So I picked February 1st. And guys, we have 3 charts coming up. I want you to know I'll post all 3 of these on Twitter. There's a lot of visual effects for you to look. Who's the best? Who's the worst? Take notes down. So at Cal Sports LV, right after we finish filming Bet on It, all 3 charts will be posted. So I went back, Kelly, since February 1st, and let's take a look. You'll see that on the left-hand side of the charts, we have the best ATS numbers on top with the green heading. We have the worst ATS numbers on the bottom. On the right-hand chart, we have the top overs, and we have the top unders. So let's take a look. Texas A&M on a 6-0 ATS run. Indiana State 7-0 ATS run. Bradley 7-0 ATS run. On the bottom, Charleston Southern 0-7 against the spread. Illinois State 0-7 against the spread. Florida State 0-6 against the spread. And one thing I will point out, when you're looking at the best and the worst ATS teams, you will often find more value if a team is 500 straight up and 6-0 against the spread. So teams that have won and covered 6 straight, many times we see the Vegas line being inflated towards those. If a team has failed to cover and has lost 7 straight games, you see a Vegas adjustment. So take a look at those charts, see if you can find some value that perhaps teams are 3-3 straight up and perhaps 7-0 ATS, or teams that are 3-3 straight up and 0-7 ATS. I think those give you much more value late. Top over teams, Texas State 7 straight overs, Holy Cross 7-0 over under their last 7 games. And on the flip side, some 0-6 teams that are over under. Northwestern playing great defense, slow pace. Iona 0-6. Dayton we know is a poor offense, good defense. Butler, a slow place team at 0-6. So hottest and coldest since February 1st.
I love that. Now, another thing that I like to focus on is certain conferences, Ralph, and that's because I do better in the Mountain West, the Big 12, and the Big 10. That just so happens to be this year. So I wanted to kind of get some information and convert it to a nerd chart so you guys can all see it in regards to conference games and who we should be looking to play on and play against.
So these records you're going to see, I have 2 charts. The first chart is the ATS chart. Home favorites, home dogs, best and worst. After we get done with that chart, we'll show you how conference games do totals-wise. So, Kelly, here's what we have to remember in college basketball. College football, you're playing once a week. There isn't much of an advantage or disadvantage. Road games, you're traveling. You have a week in between games for the most part. But college basketball is very unique. Ivy teams play Friday and Saturday night. Pac-12 teams, you play back-to-back road games, going to the 2 Oregon schools, the 2 Arizona schools. the two mountain schools in Colorado. So some conferences play midweek and Saturday, some play Thursday and Saturday. So there's quite a difference when we look at conference performances. So again, when you see this chart, it's going to be popping out as a wow chart. Conference Big Ten games. Top left of the chart are the best home favorites. Big Ten home teams this year, Kelly, home favorites covering 65% of the time. Now, I didn't put every conference in. I just put the best and the worst. MEAC home teams, home favorites covering 62. Missouri Valley Conference home favorites covering 60%. And look at the bottom charts. MEAC teams covering 33% against the spread as a home favorites. Only 20 ATS covers, 40 ATS losses. SWAC home favorites have been bad. Patriot home favorites have been bad. When we look on the right-hand side of the chart, the best conferences to bet home dogs this year, the Ohio Valley Conference, the Southland Conference, the Big South Conference, and take a look. The Big Ten is number 5, home dogs covering 61.5% of the time. So if you're going to take anything out of this chart, we're going to be talking about Purdue, Indiana. You'll see our take on it. But home favorites covering 65% in the Big Ten. Home dogs in the Big Ten covering 61.5%. Worst home dogs, meaning Southland games. If you have a Southland away favorite, they've done very well. NEC, Big West, Big East, you'll see those are only 40%. So there's not a big drop off. The Southland is the one to pay attention to. Home dogs covering only 29% of the time.
That is just unacceptable, Southland Conference. Let's go on to the totals as far as conferences go, Ralph.
Well, I took a look at, these are conference games only. So it's not all the Big Ten teams. It's Big Ten teams playing only Big Ten teams, which of course we have now. The top over conferences this year, the American Conference. You might not think that with Cincinnati, Wichita State, Houston, but look at AAC home games, 67.9% to the over. If you take out the Houston games from that list, it's going to be even higher. Mountain West Conference games, 64.3%. CUSA, Ohio Valley, and the West Coast Conference, all over 60% when you look at the totals. On the flip side, there's only one conference that's under 40%, meaning 40% overs, 61.9% unders here. The Northeast Conference, 25 overs, 39. Pac-12 has leaned to the under. Big East has leaned to the under. MEAC has leaned to the under. So just some data for you to look when you're looking at these conference games down the stretch. And again, I'll post all 3 charts at CalSportsLV after the show.
Always great data, systems, analytics, whatever you want to call from the guy with the pen, Ralph Michaels. Thank you for your insight. As always, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll come back with Ralph and Marco. Let's talk a little Big Ten action. We've got number 8 Purdue facing number 17 Indiana. They are an 8-point favorite, 8.5-point favorite. 9 is what Ralph made it. Total's now 141.5. In fact, these lines are starting to pop up in real time on the Wager Talk odds screen, so I apologize if the graphic is a little different. Marco, I love betting against Purdue on the road, but at home, there's something different about Zach Edey. He is just a freaking beast, and that team really lives and dies by him. So I'm not looking to bet against them here, but the line being shorter than what Ralph makes, it's kind of intriguing. Like, what am I missing here? Been betting against Indiana on the road as of late. Should I be doing so again here?
Yeah, Kelly, but you're looking at this one, and Indiana plays good defense, and they've played well. They've won 4 of their last 5 games, or excuse me, 4 of the last 6. They did lose midweek at Michigan State. Just a horrible spot for them. Michigan State's one of those teams that's in dire need of a couple signature wins before the end of the season, as we like to use that phrase, bubble teams, as we head down the stretch. But if you look at Indiana, look at the schedule they have. This is going to be their 4th road game out of the last 5 games. A horrible spot. In all 5 of those games have been in different cities. They had one home game sandwiched in the middle of there. And I look at this one, and we talked in the previous segment about ranked teams, ranked versus unranked, and having that unranked team as a small favorite. Well, I'll give you the flip side to that. We got ranked versus ranked, and we got a significant number here. Doesn't that look a little easy to grab the dog in this one? And usually I'm the one, yelling from the rooftops, give me the better defense catching points. Well, that would be Indiana in this case, but this is a rivalry game. And as you said, Purdue is a different animal on the road as they are at home. They play good basketball at home. And let's be honest about Purdue. If you look at what's happened with them, now forget the last game. Yeah, they beat the snot out of Ohio State. Who hasn't? Okay. Ohio State's just been an absolute money burner this year. But you look prior to that, they lost 3 out of 4 games. Why? Well, you know what? They went on the road and they had their win streak snapped at Indiana. Rivalry game. You had a small line in that game. You had Indiana was minus 1.5. Playing the number 1 team in the country. Didn't that smell? And yeah, Indiana got the win. For some reason, Purdue remained number 1 even after that loss. It was a narrow loss on the road. But then what happened the next week? It caught up to them on the road again. They lost at Northwestern, a team you like a lot, Kelly. And then they lost the game after that. I think they lost the same game twice. Now they're not number 1. They don't have the bullseye on their back. Yeah, they're highly ranked, but they don't have that pressure of that number 1 ranking, and they play with revenge. I think it looks too easy on the surface to grab Indiana plus the points. I am not going to do it. I think Purdue wins this one by 12 or more. I'm going to lay the points with the Boilermakers on Saturday. They get their revenge, and this schedule that Indiana has played catches up with them. Too many road games in a short period of time. 5 straight games in different cities in a 2-week period. I'll go ahead and lay it with Purdue.
Oh, Marco, you said something, and now, Ralph, my wheels are spinning. This looks just like when K-State played at KU. The line opens 8, gets bet up to like 11. Do you think if you like Purdue, you need to bet it now?
I do, because I think there's going to be a lot of talk. Let's remember, Marco said when Indiana beat Purdue, Purdue was number 1. Indiana stormed the court, a huge game. Teams like Purdue remember when they get the court stormed against them. I, of course, went to the database. Marco and Kelly, I want you guys to think in your head. If you are playing an opponent that you beat as an AP number 1, and now you're on the road like Indiana, think of this percentage in your head. Do you think you're 42% ATS, 54% ATS, or 62% against the spread? So a team like Indiana beat an AP number 1 at home, and now you're playing that opponent for the second time in a season. It's only happened 26 times since 2014. The teams like Indiana, with having beat the number 1 team, have actually gone 14-12, 53.8% against the spread. So do not use Purdue has revenge for losing as the AP number 1. It is not true. It's actually been a negative. But with that said, you have the best 2 players in the Big Ten. I mean, Jackson Davis and Edey. Obviously, Edey, the huge size advantage. And while I'm not going to get to the window with this is why I lean with Purdue. Jackson Davis had a monster game shooting from the outside at home. On the road, their shooting is much worse. They're 2-8-1 as a road dog. And I expect Jackson Davis to get in some foul trouble on the road against a 7'6" Eddie. So to me, if there's any foul trouble, I'm going to give a lean with Purdue for that reason. Purdue is one of the best rebounding teams, obviously, with the size they have. They are an incredible free throw shooting team, top 50. Indiana, a poor free throw shooting team. I have no interest in betting this game. I'm going to watch the inside play between these two and enjoy the hell out of it. But I will tell you this. If Jackson Davis gets 2 fouls in the first half, I will live bet Purdue absolutely on the spot, something I'll look at. So that's the one thing I'll take with that. I'll lean with Purdue. Look if Jackson Davis gets an early foul trouble. And if that's the case, live bet to fade Indiana and jump on the Boilermakers.
Look at Ralph finally being able to quantify revenge. I love that because the revenge angle has been really good for a couple of teams in the Big 12, namely the Kansas Jayhawks. We'll talk about them a little bit more at the end of the show. Ralph, I'm going to kick it right back to you. Saturday, 10 Eastern, late night special, St. Mary's at Gonzaga. Speaking of revenge, Gonzaga is a 1.5 point favorite, total around 141.5 as these lines are starting to pop up on the Wager Talk odds screen. Ralph, Gonzaga just hasn't been the Gonzaga of the past. Now, while they're playing good ball against some mediocre teams, when they face the other best team in the conference, things get a little hairy. Your thoughts?
Well, let me go back and talk about the first game first. When I had St. Mary's as the second best team in the conference. They have the freshman who is playing incredible. The freshman of the year. He has changed the dynamics of that team. And, you went through the stretch. They started off 6-0. And then what happened? St. Mary's loses to Washington in overtime. They lose to New Mexico at home. And they lose to Houston in a semi-neutral game. Their other home loss against Colorado State. And then they did lose on the road to Loyola Marymount in overtime. So you have a team that's 25-5. You have a Gonzaga team that's 24-4. And while you say Gonzaga's played so-so, no team has a better set of 5 losses in the country. You lose to Texas, a top 10 team. You lose to Purdue, a top 10 team. You lose to Baylor, who at that point was a top 15 team. You lose to St. Mary's on the road in overtime, and then you did have one bad loss, Loyola Marymount. Of the 11 games Gonzaga's lost when they played their foes again, they've won 10 out of the 11. You look at Gonzaga at home, 25-1 at home their last 26 games, 14-8-1 ATS. And why you say that ATS is 64%, you got to remember, what I should have done is look at their ATS numbers when they're laying 17 or less. And I did not do that because then you're going to get a more realistic version of what you have. Let's remember, you still have Drew Timme, a guy who's going to be one of the top picks in the draft. So I'm going to just make it simple. Again, I am not getting to the window on this game. What impressed me the most about St. Mary's this year is when they beat the Zags on February 4th, they talked to their fans in interviews prior to the game and said, we expect to win Gonzaga. St. Mary's did not rush the court. When you have that type of quality team, your fans understand how good you are. You beat the Zags at home for the first time in how many games, and your fans don't rush the court, and the players expected to win. That kind of confidence for a Randy Bennett team is exponentially powerful moving forward because your expectations are win the game. St. Mary's coming into this game to win, but if I'm getting to the Zags and close to a pick 'em with one of the strongest home courts in college basketball, playing with revenge, there's only one way I can lean, and that's on the Zags. One other thing I will mention about this, what surprised me, I was on College Basketball Today with Joe Ranieri, and not to call out Joe, but Joe gave out St. Mary's. They were laying 19 points, and, you follow St. Mary's. They are such a slow-paced team and a low scoring. How can they beat Pacific by 19? Both Gonzaga and St. Mary's not only won and covered, but covered by over 11 points per game. That shows you the quality teams as well. When you're playing on Thursday, having Gonzaga on deck, you beat Pacific by 31. When you have the Zags and you're playing St. Mary's on deck and you beat San Diego State by 25, covering the spread. So 2 teams that are incredibly focused, have 2 of the best coaches in the country, did not look past these teams, took care of the opponents. I'm going to watch and enjoy, slightest lean to the Zags, and it's going to be the best game of the day up in Spokane.
It's going to be awesome. And you know what's also going to be awesome? Hitting some more of these West Coast Conference overs, Marco. These have been money all 2023. Your thoughts on this total? 141 and a half, I thought was a little short here. I know that St. Mary's sometimes has that asterisk because they do play more defense than most of the teams here, but both these teams just scream over.
It does, Kelly, but because of the situation of the game, because you got all the ESPN cameras on deck at this game, and our traveling buddy Trigg, he's got to get west of the Mississippi. You know, he's got to catch some of these big games on the West Coast because this is going to be a fun game. This would have been a great game to see. I got to say this, Kelly. You know, when we do bet on it, college football, NFL, I have the segment trap game, sandwich game. Well, Kelly, here it is. We're going to go ahead and call this one. This is the trap game of all trap games. And I don't like to disagree with my esteemed colleague, Ralph, but I got to here. I am sorry. You've got a team that is 80-1 straight up at home, playing with revenge. The team that has absolutely owned the conference for how long? And you're going to say the line's 1.5, pick the winner in revenge. There is going to be so many people running to the window to bet Gonzaga tomorrow. Not this boy. I'm on St. Mary's, okay? Not doing it. When it looks that easy, it usually is a trap. And that's what I'm looking at. And you hit the nail on the head. There's one team that plays shutdown defense, and that is St. Mary's. And I like those points that Ralph made about the first meeting, them not storming the floor and saying, we've got unfinished business. We got more to do. And you know what? These have been the two premier teams in the West Coast Conference for a decade. But what ends up happening is, yeah, they're 1-2, but every year it's Gonzaga that gets the title almost all the time when they come and play at the Orleans here in Vegas for the conference tournament. I think they've got a mission this year. And when I saw this number at 1.5, I said, not for me. And I'll tell you another little thing, and I know, Kelly, you look at stuff like this too. The longer that tomorrow goes, and this is one of the last games on the schedule, when the game gets closer to game time and you keep seeing the betting splits, and the betting splits keep going in favor of Gonzaga, and you don't see the line moving accordingly with it, that's only going to reinforce my opinion on St. Mary's. I like St. Mary's here. Be honest with you, it was close to being my best bet, but I didn't want to double up on the play. I wanted to give you guys a different play for the best bet. I like St. Mary's on Saturday.
Oh, I can't wait for Marco's best bet. You guys are going to absolutely love it. But first, we have to take a quick commercial break.
How do you like to finish the college basketball season paying under $30 per week? Between now and Selection Sunday on March 12th, there are still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and Wager Talk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special that will include the rest of the college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. That's right, from Monday, February 27th through Monday, April 3rd, there are 5 full weeks of hoops action, which breaks down to under $30 per week. Sign up for this promotion now on your favorite handicapper's homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship in Houston on Monday, April 3rd, plus all non-March Madness tourneys, including the NIT and CBI, all for only $149. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experiences in sports. Some call March Madness the most exciting time in sports betting, so act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time. Grab your favorite college basketball handicapper, or perhaps add 2 or 3 college hoops experts to make this March Madness not only exciting, but also profitable. No coupon is needed. Just head to the homepage of the handicapper of choice and lock the $149 price in now. As the earlier you sign up, the more days you receive.
Welcome back to Bet On It. Wow, we're moving right along today. It is already time for best bets, and I'm going to get right into it. I looked for some low-hanging fruit last week. Got the win with Kansas State minus 2.5 after a stellar second half. And well, Marco and I were discussing, and I let him have his best bet, and then I went to give my best bet, and it's Ralph's best bet. So we're all in the Big 12, giving out best bets. I just decided to go with the theme, and this one is disgusting. It is the most make it make sense game on the board, and I'm going to try to make it make sense for you guys. I don't think you should bet it right now. It's currently at 6.5. West Virginia headed to KU. Yeah. The comment section. Tell me what I am, because I'm betting against KU and their top 10 defense and their top 25 offense. I got to do it, guys. They got Texas Tech on deck, finish with Texas. And here's a West Virginia team that has just been atrocious in Big 12 play. They have not really had a whole lot to write home about, but I will tell you, I think what they are going to do best here is they're going to draw fouls. And if you can get Grady Dick, and if you can get Jalen Wilson into foul trouble, guess what kind of happens? They got to start shifting in some of those other guys, and that's how you can beat KU. That's how we saw this team go down against Kansas State. That's how we saw them go down against Baylor. That's how we saw them go down against TCU, and even on the road at Iowa State. Now, I know it is extremely hard to win an Allen Fieldhouse, so I'm not going to make a case for this team on the money line. But what I need them to do is not turn the ball over, not commit stupid fouls, and get the boards. They are one of the best rebounding teams in the country, and I need them to give KU some absolute utter fits. I think this one's going to keep going higher and higher and higher. So I'm going to wait. Open 6.5. I think we're even starting to see 7s pop up on the Wager Talk odds screen. So just pump the brakes. I think we may see this one hit maybe 8.5. But West Virginia, the Mountaineers, Bob Huggins, my God. Anybody else want to throw up? Marco. Want to give me your best bet for this weekend?
I'll give you your best bet. You're not going to like it, and I asked your permission before I said I was going to use it. I didn't want us to double up or if you were going to be involved. But I am going to be involved in your K-State Wildcats, but I'm not going to be on them, and that's because if there's been a team that has shown that home-road dichotomy, it has been your Kansas State Wildcats, and they're coming off a monster win midweek against Baylor, and I just think this is a horrible spot for them heading out on the road. And we talked about that old angle system that we were talking about at the beginning of the show. This is one of those ranked versus unranked, and guess what? The unranked is going to be favored in this one. Early numbers have them a 1.5-point favorite. Either way, even if it would cross, it's still going to be the same principle because it's pick the winner. You look at one team that's ranked and you look at another team that can't get out of their own way right now. Oklahoma State looks way, way too easy to take Kansas State in this one. I'm not doing it. And when we talk about this system, I like it better on the weekends than midweek because you got a bigger crowd. You've got a more rowdy crowd, especially if it's later in the day. They probably was at the bar drinking a little bit before the game, and you get that wild atmosphere on the college campuses. I like Oklahoma State in this spot. And if you look at Oklahoma State, what they've had to do, let's go back. They've lost 3 in a row now. But the first game that they lost, what was it? It was at home against Kansas. After having a close game against Kansas the first meeting, they thought they could win that game. It was a big game for them, and they came up short. How many times do we talk about it? Lose the same game twice. They went on the road a couple days later to TCU, and they absolutely got their doors blown off, 100-75. Then, where'd they go? From Saturday to Monday. Guys, I think this is one of the absolute worst travel spots in college basketball. I've mentioned it many times. West Virginia, geographically, is not a Big 12 school. They had to go from Saturday to Monday, play on Big Monday, and play at West Virginia. And as we talked about home-road dichotomies, West Virginia is so good at home, and that's one of the reasons. It's a tough travel spot for teams. Now, Oklahoma State gets to come back home. Not only do they get to come back home, they've got back-to-back blowout losses. They've sat around for 5 days. They played on Monday. They've had all week to regroup, recharge, and reprogram and be ready for Kansas State. I love this spot for Oklahoma State. I'm going to go ahead, take Kansas State, feeling all fat and sassy after that comeback win against Baylor on Wednesday. Sorry, Kelly. I'm going Oklahoma State to get the job done. I've got them winning this one by 5 or more. Let's go ahead and make that the best bet.
Yeah, Marco, you don't have to apologize to me. Why wouldn't you want to take a team with 3 straight losses and a team that is absolutely peaking at the right time and finally stop turning the freaking ball over? I don't know. I wouldn't want to do that either. But I think you're right. I would probably lay it with the Cowboys here. Ralph, give us the last of the Big 12 trifecta here.
Yeah, well, let's hope for another 3-0 sweep as we did last week here on the show. And I'm going to go with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. You know, why is a team that's 16-12 a small favorite to TCU, who's 18-10? Well, you look when these teams first played on New Year's Eve, and TCU was a 5-point favorite. So, you know, with the Big 12 home court edge, you would expect Texas Tech to be a bigger favorite here, especially since what's happened. Texas Tech was a 5-point road dog. What have they done lately? 4 straight wins, 6 out of 7 wins their last 7 games. What has TCU done? They've lost 5 of 6 games. And is there a reason for Texas Tech's success? Absolutely. This is a situation where they had a player who became eligible late and has just started the last 7 games. If you tune into this game, check out Fardwaz Amak. He is from Utah Valley. He was back-to-back WAC Defensive Players of the Year. He was the Conference Player of the Year as well. He's the transfer here who has just started the last 6 games. He's making a huge difference in the middle, 6'11". And I have some bonus TNA for you guys. I could have put this in the TNA segment. I wanted to save it for the best bet. And to me, it makes perfect sense. If you're at home, you won each of your last 2 games as a dog. Your opponent lost their last game as a favorite, and the line's between the 5s. So you're similarly favored teams. One team is hot off back-to-back upset wins at home. The other team is off a home loss and now traveling. Those teams, like Texas Tech, have covered 66.7% of the time the last 6 years. TCU has won 6 of their last 8, as I said. Their last 3 home wins have all been versus ranked foes. You look at TCU, 1-5 straight up in ATS their last 6. TCU on the road, 1-5 ATS their last 6 road games. And I will say this, TCU's been outscored by 7 points per game on the road this year, a big first half, second half variance. I'm going to go Texas Tech full game. They continue to win. TCU continues to struggle. And we'll back Mark Adams' squad and the Red Raiders.
Love it, love it, love it. We're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, it's time for the recap.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at wagertalk.com, and all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
All the Big 12 talk on today's show warms my heart, and I'm going to give you guys a little ending of it. Our Texas Baylor, Ralph and I agree Longhorns are probably the side, but we won't be getting to the window. Marco says, don't overthink it. Take the over. This is going to be a boat race. And you know what he said? It's not going to be a boat race? That's right. Virginia, North Carolina. Marco says, don't fall for the unranked versus ranked trap. Virginia is the better team here, catching points and the better defense. Ralph likes both defenses in the first half. He says, take the under. And the estimate there is going to be about 63. Don't overthink the Big Ten. Big time favorite here. As I mentioned, this one reminds me of Kansas State at Kansas. Same thing with Indiana at Purdue. Not only are they looking for revenge, Purdue is laying a pretty penny. This one is 8.5, 9 on the Wager Talk odds screen. Every single one of us says lay it with Purdue. And, well, we got St. Mary's at Gonzaga, the late night special. We're a little head-to-head here. Ralph likes the Zags minus 1.5. Marco likes St. Mary's. And I'll give a slight head nod to St. Mary's plus 1.5. As far as best bets go, we're all taking Big 12 teams. The two boys are taking the favorites, Oklahoma State -1.5, Texas Tech -1.5, and I am taking the most disgusting underdog on the board for Saturday, West Virginia +7. Andy coming in, always sharing us those NBA best bets. He's taking Marcus Morris. Speaking of Big 12, woof. He tortured me for a really long time, under 10.5 points. So I hope Andy's right, because Marcus Morris was not very nice in my time at Kansas State. Well, at least not to my Kansas State Wildcats at the time. That being said, that's all we got. Friday show. I hope you guys are really enjoying these Saturday games, if you will. Trying something new this year. Jump in the comment section. Either give us some love, give us some hate. Regardless, help us with that algorithm. As always, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. From Marco, Ralph, Andy, and myself, good luck. Until next week, let's bet on it.